Hello, Mystic Voyager. Welcome to Tailspinner. The night sky had always been a source of fascination for Dr. Emily Harris, an astronomer by profession. Emily spent countless nights at the remote observatory, peering through the telescope, seeking answers to the mysteries of the universe. Tonight, however, would be different. Tonight, the cosmos would reveal a secret so terrifying, it would shatter her understanding of reality itself. The observatory sat atop Mount Eldridge, miles away from the nearest town. It was the perfect location for stargazing, far from the light pollution of civilization. Emily's colleagues, Dr. Daniel Moore and Dr. Sarah Bennett, were with her, as they often were. The three of them had formed a close-knit team over the years, sharing a passion for the unknown. "Emily, you need to see this," Daniel called out from his station. His voice trembled with excitement, but there was an undertone of something else, fear, perhaps. Emily walked over to Daniel's telescope, curious about what had caused such a reaction. Daniel stepped aside, allowing her to peer through the lens. She gasped. There, in the constellation Orion, was something she had never seen before. A fracture, a tear in the very fabric of space. What is that?" Emily stammered, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't know," Daniel admitted, his face pale. "It appeared out of nowhere. I've checked the records, there's no mention of anything like this." Sarah joined them, her brow furrowed in concern. Could it be some sort of optical illusion? A trick of the light? "I don't think so," Emily replied, shaking her head. "This is real. It's as if the universe itself is breaking apart." The three scientists stared at the fracture, their minds racing with questions. How could this be happening? What did it mean? And most importantly, what lay beyond the tear? As the hours passed, the fracture grew larger, spreading across the night sky like a spider web. Emily and her team documented every change, their initial excitement giving way to dread. The stars within the fracture's reach began to disappear, swallowed by an encroaching darkness. "We need to contact the International Astronomical Union," Daniel said, his voice trembling. "They need to know about this." Emily nodded, reaching for the satellite phone. But as she dialed the number, the line went dead. "No signal," she muttered, frustration creeping into her voice. "That's impossible," Sarah said, checking her own phone. "We should have perfect reception up here." A sense of unease settled over the observatory. It was as if the fracture was not just a visual anomaly, but a force disrupting everything around it. "We need to stay calm," Emily said, trying to steady her nerves. "We'll document everything we can and figure out a way to communicate with the outside world." As the night wore on, the fracture continued to expand. The darkness within it seemed to pulse, almost alive. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them from within that void. The following morning, the team was exhausted but determined. They had managed to capture several images and readings of the fracture, but the data made little sense. The laws of physics seemed to break down within the anomaly. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a series of readings. "The gravitational forces inside the fracture are off the charts. It's like a black hole, but different." "Different how?" Daniel asked, leaning over to examine the data. "It's not just pulling in matter," Sarah explained. "It's consuming it, erasing it from existence." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "We need to get this information to someone who can help," she said. "We can't handle this on our own." They tried the satellite phone again, but it was still dead. The internet connection was also down, cutting them off from the rest of the world. It was as if the fracture was isolating them, preventing them from reaching out for help. Days turned into weeks, and the fracture continued to grow. The stars around it vanished, leaving a gaping void in the sky. Emily and her team became increasingly desperate, their sense of isolation growing. One night, as Emily stood alone on the observatory's balcony, she felt a strange sensation wash over her. It was as if the darkness within the fracture was calling to her, beckoning her to come closer. She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. I need to focus, she muttered to herself. But the pull of the void was strong, and she found herself drawn to the telescope, compelled to look through it once more. As she peered into the lens, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Eyes, hundreds of them, staring back at her from the darkness. They were vast and alien, filled with a malevolent intelligence. Emily, what is it? Daniel's voice broke through her trance, and she stumbled back, shaking. There's something in there, she whispered, her voice trembling. Something alive. Daniel and Sarah exchanged worried glances. We need to get out of here, Sarah said, her voice urgent. We're in over our heads. But as they prepared to leave, a low hum filled the air. The ground beneath them began to tremble, and the observatory's lights flickered. It's the fracture, Emily said, panic rising in her chest. It's affecting everything. They ran outside, hoping to find a way down the mountain. But the path was blocked, trees had fallen, and the ground was cracked and unstable. We're trapped, Daniel said, his voice filled with despair. As the days passed, the team's situation grew more dire. Supplies dwindled, and their mental state deteriorated. The fracture loomed overhead, a constant reminder of their impending doom. One night, as they huddled together in the observatory, the hum returned, louder and more insistent. The ground shook violently, and the walls began to crack. We need to get out of here, Sarah screamed, but it was too late. The fracture had reached the observatory, its darkness seeping in through the cracks. Emily felt a cold hand grip her heart as the void closed in around them. The eyes were back, watching, waiting. Don't look at them, Daniel shouted, but Emily couldn't tear her gaze away. The eyes seemed to bore into her soul, filling her mind with visions of a vast, empty cosmos, devoid of life and light. She saw worlds consumed by darkness, civilizations erased from existence. The fracture was not just a tear in space, it was a gateway to oblivion, a passage to a realm where reality itself ceased to exist. As the darkness enveloped her, Emily heard a voice, a whisper from the void. Join us, it said, echoing in her mind. Embrace the end. She felt herself slipping away, her consciousness merging with the void. The last thing she saw was her friends, their faces twisted in terror as the darkness consumed them. Then there was nothing. No light, no sound, no thought. Just the void, an endless expanse of emptiness. Years later, the observatory was found abandoned, its equipment covered in dust. There was no sign of Emily, Daniel, or Sarah. The fracture had vanished, leaving no trace of its existence. But on clear nights, when the stars shone brightly, some claimed to see a faint outline in the sky, a shadow where the fracture had been. And those who stared too long into the darkness often reported feeling a strange pull, as if something was calling to them from beyond the void. Dr. Emily Harris had uncovered a secret of the cosmos, but it was a secret never meant to be known. The universe was not a place of endless wonder and possibility, but a fragile construct, constantly at risk of being torn apart by forces beyond comprehension. And somewhere, in the vast emptiness of the fractured cosmos, Emily's voice joined the chorus of the damned, whispering a warning to those who dared to listen. Beware the void, for it hungers. As the story concludes, the camera pans out to the night sky, lingering on the faint shadow of the fracture. The eerie music fades, leaving only the sound of the wind, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurks beyond the stars.